If you happen to be a foreign minister, how will you balance your position as a minister, Nigeria's foreign policy, with your proclivity to Iranian ideas? And then number three, you are also a journalist, an editor. I can see in the last few years a situation whereby journalists are employed and they are not paid, and some of them convert their pains to guns to survive. What is your recipe if you happen to be an information minister? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, distinguished colleagues, Senator Akume, Benue Northwest. Well, Mr. Nominee, I happen to be one of your fans. I read your column regularly, religiously too. And maybe because of my background, I differ a little from what my friend and brother said about some of your writings. I believe they are wrapped in a cocoon of patriotism, beautiful prose, syntax, dictum, and you know really what you're talking about. Mr. Nominee, I gone through your CV. Your school start is fantastic. I thought you were going to read science. You got 1 in chemistry, you got 2 in biology, you had 3 in physics. You ended up reading accountancy. And therefore, you have combined your knowledge of the sciences, knowledge of economics, and knowledge of politics. And you have brought this to bear on your writings. Number one, let me put this question. It's a very short one. A few weeks or a few months to general elections in this country. Talkers of members of hate and disunity, political and regional intolerance were at work. And this was evident in the print media, electronic media. People outside the country thought we were at war with one another. But we have regulatory framework to check these excesses. Is it inadequacy of these provisions in the framework, or it's a matter of neglect on the part of the operators of the framework? If confirmed, either if not posted to information, you will still be a member of the cabinet. What would you suggest would be a panacea to what we witnessed in the last elections? Number two may be more sensitive, but I want us to bear with me. Those of you who write about us in public life never spare us at all. We are unpatriotic, we are corrupt, and I know you have read well, very vastly too. And I don't know whether you draw some of these experiences from the works of people like Voltaire, a fantastic writer and philosopher, that behind every big fortune there is a crime. Is that applicable to the Nigerian situation? Is it applicable to those of us only in the public service? Or you can apply that to the private sector? Thank you very much.
performing Senate President, my colleagues, my name is Dino Melaye. I represent Kogi West Senatorial District. Mr. Chairman, Mr. President, my colleagues, Malam Adamu, there is no doubt that you are a man of integrity. You are a hot pen, highly intellectually mobile and sagacious, and above all, a very close associate of the nemesis of corruption, President Muhammadu Buhari. And integrity pays. I have no doubt in my mind that my colleagues will support, as I move a motion in support of integrity, that after answering the questions, you take a bow and go. Thank you.
Senator Pujagiba.
Thank you, Mr. President. Distinguished colleagues, I rise not to second any motion, but to ask my questions. Thank you. Mr. Mamini, I've gone through your CV. Can see a very intellectual man of very vast experience. But I want to ask you, what is your clear understanding of the national and foreign policy objectives of this government you want to serve, if confirmed? And if these foreign policies are consistent with your expectations, how is your cabinet going to leverage on it to attract more foreign direct investments to Nigeria? Number two. That's the question. Number two. Don't you hear question? We spend an average of 1.3, 1.5 trillion in payment of subsidies and importation of petroleum products currently. And our economic mainstay is crude oil. If you are confirmed as a minister to serve, what suggestion will you bring to government to free this 1.3 trillion to 1.5 trillion for investments into social infrastructure so that we can make do with local production and refining capacity of our crude oil? Number three. Yes. Number three. Merci. But your 1 second. How will you bring your experience? How will you bring your experience over years to ensure that the medium, the low-income earners are supported tacitly or directly by government, and incentives created for overall welfare of this class of citizens? Thank you, Mr. President.
These questions.
Senator Sheikh Sani, it is true I wrote a series of articles, Lamentations of a Nation. And like every journalist, I think I put forward my views, which are like a hypothesis. And it is our belief that this government will probably set up a judicial commission of inquiry as it has been advised. And then at the conclusion of that investigation, you'll find out whether I'm wrong or right. And then we'll know what exactly happened in Boko Haram. And then you ask that I have a lot of interest in a certain country. How will that affect me if I become a foreign minister? I think everyone has interests, but I think the national interest is probably supreme, and that is what guides what you do in public life. And the question by Senator Akume from Benue, I think the real panacea for what happened in the country and what has been happening in the north here is probably to have respect for each other And then when there is an election, to have good government. I think that will solve all the problems that we are facing as a nation. I don't think any other thing will do. All other things are probably half measures. And I took my inspiration from any source that I read, including Voltaire. And the senator whose name I didn't get, he asked about how we will convert the 1.1 trillion subsidy into refining capacity. I think he answered all his questions. Just from the explanation he gave, I got the answers inside. So I think it's a problem.
Distinguished colleagues, let me just thank you, distinguished colleagues. The nominee has taken some very important questions and has addressed it. I think it is the wish for him to take his leave. That is the mood I read. I read that mood very well. Let me take your leave.
Adamu, prolific writer, an accountant by profession, but a journalist by career, and a veteran one for that matter. But it appears his answers were not as long as his articles. A graduate of accountancy from the Ahmadu Bello University Zaria, and when he ventured into politics, Adamu serves as secretary of the All Progressive Congress Transition Committee after the 2015 general elections.